Gotta turn. Good morning, Michael. How are you? Good. Good morning. Hello out there in Radio Land.
Testing 1 2. So I guess we're Well, good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. We will begin shortly in approximately 1 minute. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Morris. I'm the Transportation Director here at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to welcome everyone to the North Central Texas Council of Governments Public Information Meeting for the Dallas to Fort Worth High-Speed Rail Transportation Connections Study. This week, we obtained some very good news from the Federal Railroad Administration in that they approved high-speed rail from Houston to Dallas. So we now have a destination location to shoot for as we continue west from downtown Dallas at that high-speed rail station to a station in Arlington and a station, of course, in Fort Worth. So that's very positive news for our particular effort. We have a great team of individuals presenting to you today. I asked you as citizens to focus on two things: where we should be considering alignments, and how. The two elements of how I'd ask you to focus on is what technologies that you'll hear about today, and how do we engage citizens and businesses and residents to be involved in our particular effort. We very much believe in a grassroots, bottom-up approach, and we're constantly looking for interested parties to participate in the process. So again, welcome to all of you. I turn it back over to Rebecca.
Thank you, Michael. During this presentation, we will cover many topics related to the study. These topics include methods to participate by asking questions or submitting comments. A project overview and the project's background will be provided. A listing of possible technologies available to travel on, the possible alignments within the corridor, and ways to stay informed about the project will all be provided. Primary ways to provide comments or ask questions during the study. The first is to use our online comment form at www.nctcog.org/DFWHSTCS. The second is to mail questions or comments to DFWHSTC Study at Post Office Box 5888, Arlington, Texas 76005. At the conclusion of this presentation, we will be opening up the phone line for public comment. For those currently on the phone, please press 0 to speak. We will request your city and zip code, then you will be placed in queue. You will still be able to hear the meeting when you are in queue. For those who are listening online but wish to join via phone, dial 855-756-6766. 7520, extension 65720 pound. We will also open up our online platform for public comments or questions at the conclusion of the presentation if you wish to type in your comments or questions. For any technical difficulties during the online platform, please call 972-628-3003 or email nvleck, that's nvleck, at htb.org.
Thank you, Rebecca. I want to ask everyone to please take the time to review the project information and provide comments. The next section will discuss the project background and project overview. The primary project objective is to evaluate high-speed transportation technology options between downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth. This includes analyzing both alignment and transportation mode options between the two cities. The objective includes finding ways to connect the Dallas-Fort Worth region to other proposed high-performance passenger systems in Texas. Also, the project will investigate ways to enhance connections to the regional transportation systems, including automobile, bus, rail, bicycle, and pedestrian networks. An additional objective is to obtain federal environmental approval to design and implement the project. The stated objectives will be analyzed in the study area as shown. This area is generally bounded by State Highway 121 and State Highway 183 to the north, Interstate Highway 35E to the east, downtown Fort Worth to the west, and United States Highway 287 and State Highway 303 to the south. As mentioned earlier, the study objective is to provide a connection to other proposed high-performance transportation systems. This project, highlighted in orange, when completed would connect the proposed Dallas to Houston high-speed rail, highlighted in gray, to a proposed high-performance system traveling south from downtown Fort Worth, highlighted in purple, to areas in Central and South Texas. The Dallas to Fort Worth high-speed transportation connection study is divided into two phases. The first phase will analyze all reasonable alternatives regarding alignment and travel technology. The wide range of alternatives will be pared down to a small number of recommended travel technologies and a small number of alignment options through a multiple level screening process to be further analyzed in phase 2. The second phase will be an engineering and environmental analysis as prescribed by the National Environmental Policy Act. The second phase will include conceptual and preliminary engineering tasks. The study will also include financial and project management plans. Phase 2 will conclude with a decision by the federal government regarding next project steps. Staff anticipates the first phase to take approximately 12 months and conclude in spring 2021. During the first phase, there will be 3 opportunities for the region to participate in the study through public meeting events. These events are currently scheduled for September 2020, December 2020, and April 2021. The Phase 2 schedule indicates beginning the work efforts in early summer 2021 and concludes in late spring of 2023. This 24-month schedule includes 2 primary public engagement events in early fall 2021 and late summer 2022. As always, questions and comments are welcome throughout the entire project study. One of the initial tasks for this type of project is to develop a description of the project purpose which addresses the project objectives. The preliminary project purpose is to connect downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth with high-speed intercity passenger rail service or an advanced high-speed ground transportation technology to provide an alternative to travel by automobile, to advance the state high-performance rail transportation network, to support economic development opportunities in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, and to enhance connectivity. Enhancing connectivity occurs at two levels. One level encompasses the local transportation networks like the DART light rail system or the TexRail system, local bus systems, the roadway system, and bicycle and pedestrian systems. The second level of enhancing connectivity is coordinating connections to other high-speed transportation systems in Texas, including the Dallas to Fort or including the Dallas to Houston high-speed rail system and a planned high-performance transportation system traveling south from Fort Worth to Central and South Texas. One reason for the need to connect the Dallas-Fort Worth region to other metropolitan areas is the region's population and employment growth. The Dallas-Fort Worth region's population is expected to grow by over 50% between 2018 and 2045 to over 11 million people, while employment growth is expected to be over 46% to more than 7 million people employed in the region by 2045. Other metropolitan areas within the Texas Triangle megaregion anticipate very similar population and employment growth over the next 25 years. With the high population and employment growth in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, the Dallas-Fort Worth region has increased travel congestion and costs associated with more traffic congestion. The amount of miles all travelers in the region drive is expected to increase by over 56% by 2045. This increase in total miles traveled results in a 59% increase in travel time throughout the region. Travel time increases due to traffic congestion are expected to be the worst in Tarrant and Dallas counties, with Dallas County travelers expected to experience a 72% increase in travel time above current levels by 2045. The annual cost of the expected congestion to all travelers in the region is estimated to rise by 125% by 2045. The need for connectivity to other metropolitan regions is focused on the Texas Triangle megaregion as shown here. The Texas Triangle is made up of several large metropolitan regions, including Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio. High-speed transportation is optimal for connecting large metropolitan regions within a megaregion compared to commercial air travel due to the strategic distances between regions and additional travel time needed for commercial aircraft. In addition to high population and employment growth in the DFW region, the state of Texas is growing rapidly as well. Population in Texas is expected to grow by almost 38% to just under 41 million people by 2045. This means employment growth will also be fast-paced. Employment in Texas is expected to rise by more than 44% to about 26.3 million people by 2045. With all of the expected growth in population in Dallas-Fort Worth region and within the Texas Triangle, and the anticipated traffic delays caused by congestion, more and faster travel choices are needed. Additional travel choices will increase connectivity to, from, and within the Dallas-Fort Worth region and will lessen demand on the region's roadways. Additional travel choices will also allow for more reliable travel times and lead to better air quality within the region.
Now we're going to talk about transportation technologies. There are many options and possibilities for the DFW region to provide the transportation choices needed to reduce anticipated travel delays and associated costs while providing needed connectivity to, from, and within the region. There are several high-speed transportation technologies or modes of travel to be examined for their use to meet the region's travel needs. These modes of travel include conventional transportation, like conventional passenger rail, similar to Trinity Railway Express or Amtrak trains, higher speed trains, which are faster than conventional trains, but slower than high-speed trains. Higher speed trains are similar to the Amtrak Acela service, which is between Washington, D.C. and Boston, if you're familiar with that service. High-speed trains are not currently operating in the United States, but are operating in many other countries. High-speed rail trains are the passenger trains proposed for the Dallas to Houston system. Magnetic levitation, or maglev for short, is another high-speed train technology. While similar to high-speed trains in many aspects, maglev trains hover over the tracks using very strong magnets instead of relying on steel wheels to connect a steel rail to stay on track. Maglev trains are currently in limited operation in other countries. The newest high-speed transportation technology is Hyperloop. Hyperloop technology incorporates a passenger or cargo pod moving at speeds up to 650 miles per hour in a near vacuum tube. This concept is similar to the vacuum tubes used to transfer transactions at a bank drive-through lane. In addition, other modes of travel will be examined as they become known. If you know of any transportation technologies we should examine during our study, please let us know. Include this in your comment form. Each of the technologies or modes of transportation to be examined have various design and operating characteristics. These design and operation characteristics include top speed, the type of guideway or the tracks used, peak headways, which means how often the trains depart a station, the train's cargo hauling capability, and if the technology is ready for passenger use. These characteristics are identified for conventional trains, higher speed trains, and high-speed trains in the graphic that you see on this slide. The operating and design characteristics for magnetic levitation trains and Hyperloop technologies are shown on this slide. It's interesting to note that all other train style technologies except Hyperloop have similar design and operating styles. The Hyperloop technology exhibits different characteristics regarding speed, operating style, and the availability to accommodate cargo. Looking more closely at the design characteristics for each technology, it's important to understand how the footprint and the profile affect the surrounding environment, including the amount of right-of-way width needed. A typical cross-section of each technology gives a view of the technology and its associated infrastructure that's required. A typical section provides an example of what could be expected to generally be built through the corridor. Some variations will occur within the corridor, but this is generally how the technology is expected to be built. The typical sections for conventional and higher speed trains are shown here on this slide. Unlike the conventional and higher speed rail typical sections, which are generally constructed on the ground or at grade, the technologies with the highest speeds require the vehicles to operate generally above grade or on bridge structures throughout the corridor. The typical sections for high-speed and maglev, or magnetic levitation, trains and the Hyperloop technology are shown here in this slide. It's important to note, if viable high-speed transportation technologies are analyzed, similar information will be examined as well. A quick comparison of the technologies examined so far indicates several similarities and differences among the technologies. The similarities include how each technology operates on a fixed guideway or a track of some kind and reaches speeds of over 100 miles per hour. Each technology requires a similar amount of property for right-of-way, and each needs stations for access to the system and to maintenance facilities. The differences among the various technologies include the type of propulsion system and the number and frequency of station locations. Other differences include the operating schedule and if the technology can accommodate cargo. There are other similarities and differences among the technologies, but this slide identifies those major components.
In addition to analyzing several high-speed modes or technologies, we'll also be looking at a large number of potential alignments or corridors within the study area. Using previous transportation studies that have already been completed within the study area, we'll be using those as a base. There are corridors that were developed previously during those studies. We're using that as a base and building upon that, looking at additional corridors as well. We're trying to use the existing corridors, transportation corridors, as much as possible so that we can avoid potential right-of-way impacts and potential property acquisitions, really minimizing the impacts to surrounding land uses, including homes and businesses. It's also important to note that all of the corridors that we are analyzing during this study have the same endpoints. So we will be connecting to the proposed downtown Dallas high-speed rail station on the east. That's the proposed station for the Dallas to Houston high-speed rail project. And on the west, we'll be connecting at the Fort Worth Central Station. At this point, we've identified 43 end-to-end alignments or corridors, but we know there may be other ideas out there. So as you flip through the materials and look at our maps that are coming up here in just a minute, if you think of additional alignments or corridors that you feel that we should consider, please note that in your comment form, and we will look into that. The map you see here shows families of alignments. So dealing with 43 alignments, in order to better manage those, we decided to group them into families. The 5 families that we've grouped them into, you'll see on the map, are color-coded in different colors. These 5 families are generally identified as the Trinity Railway Express, or the TRE alignments, the Trinity River alignments, the IH30 alignments, the SH180 alignments, and finally the SH303 alignments. Looking at in a deeper detail into each of the families, the map you see here shows the potential TRE alignments. As you'll notice, there are variations in those alignments, but generally speaking, each of these alignments travels within the TRE corridor for some portion of the alignment. So they were grouped together into this family. These alignments leave the Fort Worth Central Station along the TRE corridor, paralleling SH121 to IH820. The alignments generally continue along the TRE corridor into downtown Dallas, with an optional deviation departing the TRE corridor at SH10 to SH180, reuniting with the TRE corridor at its junction with IH35E in Dallas. Another alignment alternative follows IH30, leaving downtown Fort Worth before heading north along SH360 in Arlington, and then heads east along the TRE corridor into downtown Dallas. The next map you see shows the proposed Trinity River corridors. These generally follow the west fork of the Trinity River between downtown Fort Worth and downtown Dallas. The alignments parallel the IH30 corridor, leaving downtown Fort Worth before turning north to align with the west fork of the Trinity River at the following locations: near Beach Street in Fort Worth, just east of IH820 in Fort Worth, at SH360 in Arlington, and just east of Beltline Road in Grand Prairie. Once east of SH360, the alignment generally follows the Trinity River into downtown Dallas. The next map shows the potential IH30 corridors. This family of alignment generally follows on or near the IH30 corridor between the 2 downtowns. Some of the alternatives include minor and moderate deviations in the Arlington area and Grand Prairie in order to avoid potential impacts to the SH360 and President George Bush Turnpike interchanges with IH30. There are also a couple of deviations off of IH30 east of Loop 12. One of those deviations runs parallel to the Union Pacific Railroad corridor north of IH30 and into downtown Dallas. The map you see here shows the potential SH180 corridors, the family of alignments. These corridors follow the SH180 corridor for a good portion of their routes. While most of these alternatives follow SH180 leaving downtown Fort Worth, you'll notice some alignments follow IH30 before joining SH180 near SH360. Heading east along SH180 through Grand Prairie, these alignments diverge just west of Loop 12 into a variety of alternatives, including paralleling the Union Pacific Railroad tracks into downtown Dallas. One alternative continues along West Davis Street and Fort Worth Avenue to IH30 into Dallas. Another alternative crosses the Mountain Creek Lake Dam, heading southeast to parallel the DART Red Line to the Dallas High-Speed Rail Station. And finally, the last family of alignments is the SH303 family. These generally follow SH303 and the southwest leg of the DART red line between downtown Fort Worth and downtown Dallas. On the Fort Worth end, one alternative parallels SH180, leaving the Fort Worth Central Station, heading to IH 820 before following SH303, while the other alternative follows US 287 and IH 820 before turning east to align with SH303. So this gives you an overview of the 5 families of alignments that we're considering in our evaluation. The various technologies and 43 plus alignments will be carried forward into our alternatives evaluation and into the level 1 screening. You see here the proposed evaluation methodology for our evaluation. There's a 3-level screening process to pare down the vast number of possible options to select few by the end of the first study phase, which is scheduled to end in spring 2021. The process is depicted on this graphic. It begins with identifying all possible alternatives. That's the blue box where we are today. This is where we need your help. If you have an option that the team has not thought of so far, please fill out the comment form and let us know. The first level of evaluation for the alternatives is to determine if the alternative meets the project purpose and need. The alternatives that meet the project purpose and need then move to the second level evaluation. The second level evaluation focuses on identifying which may preclude the alternative from being built. Finally, the alternatives deemed to not be the alternative fatal flaw are then put through a more detailed and stringent third level evaluation. The goal is to complete the third level with a limited number of technologies and alignments or corridors to be evaluated in the project's second phase. To provide a little more detail on the various screening criteria, you'll see on the graphic we have here the 3 levels. Level 1 with the ability to meet purpose and need. Level 2, we'll be looking at fatal flaws and ranking. And level 3 is our detailed evaluation. Level 1, we actually have 2 primary criteria and then a number of secondary criteria. The primary criteria we consider fatal flaws. And those are that we need, each of these alternatives needs to serve downtown Dallas and Fort Worth at the proposed high-speed rail station in Dallas and at the Fort Worth Central Station in Fort Worth. Additionally, they need to have competitive travel time to auto and to the existing TRE service. If they do not meet these 2 criteria, then they're not evaluated further into the analysis. Our secondary criteria looks at safety, we look at reliability and convenience. We also look at potential linkages to other high-performance transportation systems throughout Texas. We also look regionally here within the DFW area at linkages to existing regional and light rail. And finally, we also look at providing improved access to major activity centers within the study area. In level 2, we dive down more into the individual alignment level. We look at proximity to sensitive social, biological, and cultural areas. We look at potential community impacts. From a technology standpoint, we look at technology maturity. Some of these technologies have been around for decades, others are just emerging. So we take that into consideration, as well as design criteria associated with each of the technologies, and if a regulatory approval process is in place or not. We also look at capacity, travel time, compatibility with existing infrastructure, and then we look at operational considerations as well. How these technologies work within the real world. Finally, at the level 3 detailed evaluation, we have a much smaller number of alternatives that we develop a 5% level of design on. We develop costs, including both capital costs, what it costs to construct the project, as well as O&M costs, the operation and maintenance costs that are ongoing for each alternative. We also do a deeper dive into potential impacts to sensitive social, biological, or cultural areas, potential community impacts, and then we look at constructability and operability as well. At this point, after we complete the 3 levels of evaluation, we then carry forward the limited number of technologies and alignments into the phase 2 of the project.
As mentioned throughout this presentation, the project team wants to know your thoughts and opinions regarding possible alternatives. There are several ways you can provide your thoughts and opinions. As mentioned earlier, one way is to use the electronic comment form found at www.nctcog.org/DFW-HSTCS. A written letter may also be provided to DFW-HSTC Study, Post Office Box 5888, Arlington, Texas 76005. Additionally, there will be more public meetings scheduled in December 2020 and spring 2021. For additional information and/or to sign up for project notices, please visit the project website at www.nctcog.org/DFW-HSTCS. You may also request a presentation and/or briefing to your organization through the project website.
Rebecca, thank you very much. The project team would like to thank you and your time in listening to us today. We very much need to hear comments with regard to the materials that you heard. We indicated to you that we would be focusing on where alignments should be and how they may impact you, as well as how those technologies could be used, and then how we need to engage lots of public involvement as part of this particular process. Lots of events are scheduled. And again, as Kevin indicated to you, you can give us comments along the way, and we would very much appreciate that. So I think we're opening up the lines to see if we have any questions today. I want to thank very much my colleagues for their presentation. We have a very good team and committed to not only respond to your questions, but perform the activities that we outlined today. Rebecca?
Thank you, Michael. We'll now be opening up the phone line for public comment or questions. For those on the phone, please press 0 to speak. We will request your city and zip code, then you will be placed in queue. You will still be able to hear the meeting while waiting in queue. For those who are listening online, we are now opening up our online platform for comments. You can type in public comments or questions, and to gain access, visit www.nctcog.org/DFW-HSTCS and follow the link to today's meeting. As a reminder, to participate on the phone, dial 855-756-7520, extension 65720 pound, and press 0 if you wish to speak.
Rebecca, at this time, we do not have any callers in the speaker queue, so I know we have folks who are participating online, so we will check to see if we've had any comments come in online, and we'll read those and then move back over if we get callers.
Thank you, Amanda. We have one question. If the Texas Central Railway is not completed when or as expected, what would be the Dallas terminus?
Well, we're prepared for that particular option, and we've worked with the Federal Railroad Administration to have a standalone project if that were to happen. So we would still want to meet the objectives of connecting to the system of in-region transit components we have. So it would still have us focused on downtown Dallas and downtown Fort Worth. I don't think that would change. The specific location would maximize the magnitude of public sector investment we've made to the 2 rail lines that are in Fort Worth and to the TRE and the rail system invested in Dallas. So we stand ready to interface with the current high-speed rail station, but if for whatever reason that were not to occur, we have a standalone project ready to go with a similar objective to get to downtown Dallas and Fort Worth. I hope that answered the responder's question.
We have a second question. To help us understand the value of an HSR, to help us understand the value an HSR would provide to my community, what is the expected travel time for trips between Dallas and Fort Worth with a stop in some mid-city?
So we'll turn it over to our colleagues. You guys have been looking at rough estimates. Obviously, the alignment would be a big part of it, and which technology it would be. So why don't you go ahead?
Absolutely. There are a lot of variables that go into determining the travel time. And as you saw in the presentation, we've got over 40 corridor possibilities and almost half a dozen some odd technologies or so. So one of the initial criteria by which we will evaluate the technology in the corridor is it has to be competitive with automobile traffic. So where we are right now is stating that is the initial criteria. As we advance through each step of evaluation, we'll know more and conduct evaluations specific to corridors, applying the capabilities of the technologies as we go to level 2 and level 3 screening. So right, I can say that it will be competitive with automobile traffic.
Yeah, the other thing that's important is just because you have a maximum speed doesn't necessarily mean you would engage in that particular maximum speed. So I think we want to be very careful, just because you could maybe ramp up to a really high speed and then be at that maximum speed for a matter of seconds before you then have to decelerate. In the real world, you probably wouldn't operate in that form or fashion. So, we're looking at travel times that are, we very much understand the magnitude of the cost of construction, and if we can't develop an alignment that satisfies the public and has a very reasonable operations plan where you're not just loading it up for the sake of loading it up, we know at the end of the day, especially because of our responsibility to connect to a statewide high-speed rail system, we don't want a gap left in it in the future. But I think you'll see us being very sensitive of not coming up with a travel time just for the sake of a travel time, but have a reasonable business model on how you would operate a high-speed technology in the real world. So I asked that person to stay with us as we look at alignments and technologies moving forward. Any other questions there?
We have one more question. We have two more questions. Why is air not considered part of the regional transportation system? In Western Europe and Eastern Asia, you can fly into a metro area and walk to high-speed rail connections. Are we not considering that at all in DFW?
So these are the aviation connections. So we have a very strong sensitivity to our aviation system. So let's focus on Love Field just for a moment. So someone wishes to come into Love Field, some from other parts of the country. You would be getting onto the light rail system at Love Field. You would be getting off at the downtown Dallas station to either continue your trip to Houston or to go to Fort Worth or maybe someday on to Austin, San Antonio. The reason why, and I'm glad the question was raised, the Arlington station is so important. Arlington is a potential destination on its own, but Arlington is the gateway to DFW International Airport. So as we work on the 4th rail line to the airport, we have a light rail from Irving, you have the rail line from Fort Worth, you have the Silver Line now going to construction. The 4th rail line is from the south. We would be providing rail and a high-speed rail connection to DFW International Airport. So imagine someone coming in from Paris, landing in DFW Airport. Their connection would be either of those 4 rail lines, but they could take light rail to downtown Dallas. They could take the rail connection to the Arlington station, and if they wish to go on to Laredo or Austin or San Antonio or somewhere else. The key part of the question, and we debated this, Kevin, 6-7 years ago, is that in the future it's key to get to the downtowns. If you want to get to the airports, you would just take a plane and go to the airports. So this way, if your destination by plane is to Denton, Texas, you may take an airplane to DFW Airport to go to Denton, Texas. But if your destination is to go to the downtowns or to go to the downtown areas that are connected by our rail system, then the high-speed rail becomes an opportunity for you. So we have the benefit of linking to our aviation system as part of this particular vision, but we also have the ability of getting to our downtowns faster, so you don't land at the DFW airport and still be 45 minutes away from your final destination.
What is the status of the proposed Fort Worth to Laredo line? How does the potential Fort Worth to Laredo line affect the ideal alignment in downtown Fort Worth?
So obviously, we want the same system connection that we're talking about in downtown Dallas. So Houston to Dallas, we want to be coterminous with high-speed rail technologies going over to Arlington and Fort Worth. The same plan exists, as you heard from our presenters, to get to the intermodal facility in downtown Fort Worth to seamlessly connect to the 2 rail lines, but also as the person asked, to connect from downtown Fort Worth to Waco, Tempe, Killeen, Austin, San Antonio, and Laredo, and someday to Monterrey, Mexico. So that coterminus situation is just as important. We finished up a preliminary effort. Kevin Felt led an effort to engage those 6 communities I just mentioned. They are very interested in linking our 6 communities together. We have sent a letter to the Texas Department of Transportation. That area is obviously outside of our boundary at the Regional Transportation Council. Those 6 communities are working together to develop a presentation to go in front of the Texas Transportation Commission and to transition the previous TxDOT study to a Tier 2 environmental, asking, those 6 communities will be asking TxDOT to engage in a Tier 2 environmental, similar to this effort, to advance alignment and technologies, same as us, to go from Fort Worth to Laredo, Texas. This upside down U, Houston, DFW to Laredo, is part of the state transportation plan, and we are eager to try to get that advanced as fast as we possibly can.
How many stops, if any, are anticipated between Dallas and Fort Worth?
That would depend upon the technology. Most technologies, we would anticipate 1 stop between Dallas and Fort Worth in Arlington as part of our region's policy. Have 3 stations in the region. If other technologies, depending on the technology, we could have additional stops depending on how the technology operates. So at this point, we don't have an answer, but we do know that it could be 3, it could be several more. But we'll know more about that as we go through the process and come down to the 1 or so alternative to move into the second phase.
If the chosen technology is interoperable with either of the 2 HSR options at the ends, might there be a possibility of through service to the proposed DFWHST line?
Yeah, so the strongest desire is what we would call a 1-seat ride, where you get on in Fort Worth, you get on the 808, it goes all the way to Houston. It happens to stop at, say, Arlington and downtown Dallas, or vice versa. You get on in Houston and you go all the way to Fort Worth, and it's a seamless connection in downtown Dallas, or vice versa. Someday you could have a seamless connection in downtown Fort Worth to go on to Austin or San Antonio. We are not going to let that design constraint affect our ability of looking at other technologies in the corridor. So we have an interagency agreement with Texas Central Partners for a cross-platform transfer. So we would, if we have a different mode of transportation, we would be optimizing it based on other criteria at the expense of losing a one-seat ride, but we would be coming into the same station in approximate location to the same platform to minimize the impact to the person who wishes to transfer to that particular mode of transportation.
Is the plan at this time to share the right-of-way with heavy rail or build a separate alignment in the general area?
We haven't determined that. As we mentioned earlier, there are 43 possible alignments, and it may be adjacent to, it may be within, and it may be completely separate on another part of the region. So at this point, we don't have an answer for that. But again, like with the mode and the number of stations, we'll be working through the process and coming to some conclusion probably in the spring of 2021.
When will details on various alignments be available? Most interested in Interstate 30, SH 180, and SH 303.
So maps of the specific alignments are already on the project website. You can look at those in detail. You can also provide comments on the specific alignments that you're most interested in. We do not have, at this point, a lot of specific details on the alignments as we are currently looking at, as we said earlier, 43 alignments and 5+ technologies. So as we start our process here of the actual screening, we'll come back to you with more information on how each of those compare to one another. But in terms of specific alignment details and where they go, those maps are available on the project website. And I would like to also say that the alignments that you see are really fat marker alignments on a map. So at this point, we're still looking high level. And so the alignment that you see really has some flexibility as well. We're looking at really sort of a wider corridor within those general corridor areas.
Yeah, I think that point is really important. You're basically seeing a concept or a corridor. Hey, is it feasible to leave downtown Fort Worth and to come down, this particular section of 303? And if you have a business on 303, I think it would be too early to tell us, well, we like that because we may wish to have a station there, or we don't like that because it looks like it's very close to our business, or are you taking our business? I think the point is these are conceptual concepts, and there's no reason why you can't give us whatever comment you wish to give us with regard to those conceptual comments. If the comment is, please don't take my house, or please take my house, whatever it is, you're more than welcome to give that to us. The engineering detail is not there yet because we don't want to miss any conceptual corridor that might be a really cool and effective way to get between Dallas and Fort Worth. But as you see in the study design, it's a very quick, fast-tracked process. So as residents, you're better to weigh in sooner than later, but it's quite possible you could be weighing in on a core that ends up getting rejected for lots of reasons. So I would err in giving us the comment, but we're far from any engineering detail to know if there's implications to your particular business or residence.
I don't have any more questions on this end.
Amanda?
We still do not have any callers on the town hall that wish to speak. If you do wish to speak, please press 0 and you will be entered into the queue to speak. We'll just ask for your name, your city, and your zip code.
Amanda, thank you. Anyone else come back yet?
No further questions.
Those are very good questions that were raised thus far, so we have a very engaged citizenry. Rebecca, do I turn it back over to you?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that we do have a lot of project information on our website. In addition to a pre-recorded narrated presentation, we do have a presentation in Spanish posted online, as well as evaluation criteria, the purpose and need for the study, a technology fact sheet, and all of these are both in English and Spanish. We also have an alignment map, and you can find a recent press release, a map of the study area, all on the website. You can also sign up to receive project updates, and you can submit comments anytime online. And as a reminder, the project webpage is www.ncT.org/DFW-HSTCS. And again, I just wanted to remind everyone, the phone line is open for public comment or question, as well as our online platform. You can type in a question online. And we have about 5 minutes left here, so please let us know if you have any additional questions or comments.
So we are here and very interested in any other comments or questions you may have. So Amanda, we'll turn it over to you.
Michael, we do have one caller on the phone, so I'm going to open up the line. I do not have a name, so if you have requested to speak and talk to Carly, you are, I'm going to allow you to speak now. And so you are live to the meeting.
Hi, I wanted to just ask a question to verify that the presentation, which I did not see because I was on the telephone, is online so that I can look at it later, what was presented today visually.
Rebecca?
Is that correct?
Yes, correct. The presentation is online. You can view a pre-recorded narrated presentation, but if you just wish to view the slides, there are also just the presentation slides online. If you click the tab under project information, you'll see that. And if needed, we can always mail out printed copies of presentations to anyone who requests that.
So I think the question, and I very much appreciated it, there's lots of information on the website. So if you want it in Spanish, you can hear the presentation in Spanish. If you want to hear the presentation in English, you can hear it in English. If you just wish to look at the slides and just go through them yourself, you have that option as well. And then there's other information there, you know, more detail. And as we keep putting information together, I'm sure we'll house it there. So we will engage you from time to time to continue to look there. And we're always interested in potentially impacted groups, either for or against such an initiative that we're doing. Please let us know who those groups are so we can add them to our contact list and get them engaged in our process. The more the merrier as we move forward. So thank you very much for that comment. Amanda, is there anyone else on there?
No, we have no other speakers in the queue, but just a reminder to press 0 if you do wish to speak.
Any other comments on our end?
I'd just also like to say that as you review the materials offline, if you do have comments that you think of after the meeting today, you can always go to the project site. And at the bottom, you can submit a comment, and we will get back to you on that as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, even though we have several milestone items, we really encourage you to engage with us continuously. It's a team sport here. So send us comments, do you have any updates on such and such? Anything new on alignments on 303, whatever it may be. Our staff and the consultant team will be working hard on keeping up with that particular material. We get past COVID-19, we'll engage in other ways to hold and communicate with you. We didn't want to wait any longer in engaging with you to see how we're going to go about doing this. But I think we're going to stay until 1. I think, Rebecca, is that the plan? A few more minutes and see if we have any other commenters.
Yes, we're going to wrap up here just in the next couple minutes. And I did want to remind everyone that this same presentation that we held today will also be held tomorrow at 6 p.m. for those if you wish to let anyone know who missed today's presentation. It is the same presentation tomorrow at 6 p.m. And we have a couple minutes left. Are there any other comments or questions on the phone or online? Okay, not at this time. And just a reminder of the project website again, where all of our information is. It is www.nctcog.org/DFW slash, or I'm sorry, dash HSTCS. So that's www.nctcog.org/DFW-HSTCS. So please let us know if you have any comments after this meeting ends through that website. And please look around at all the project information we have. I'll ask one last time before we wrap it up. Any other comments or questions?
We still have no callers in the queue. I guess maybe this would serve as the final call for dialing 0 or pressing 0 if you'd like to enter the speaker queue and speak to the meeting.
Oh, we do actually have a couple of comments online.
Food, retail, freelance, and housing options.
I'll be happy to take that. Could you just say it one more time?
Food, retail, freelance, and housing options.
So I take sense that the question is, how does a transportation investment like high-speed rail deal with the important land use fabric of our everyday life? And it's interesting that of all of our modes of transportation, high-speed rail has the greatest impact on the caller's question. When you deal with modes of transportation that have the speeds that they do, it can radically change your potential location of both business and residence. And when you study high-speed rail in other countries, it very much drives the caller's question with regard to those amenities related to health and shopping and jobs and residential location. So one of the things that's very sensitive to the investments in high-speed rail is then the residential and business relocation impacts associated with. So just imagine Dallas and Fort Worth being half the distance or 1/3 the distance that it is today between those two communities because of the introduction of a new mode of transportation, how it can radically change where you wish to shop, where and how you get your food, where you wish to have your residence and your business. You literally could, have a dentist in Houston. So there's lots of things that can change when you're dealing with this, and one of those economic development impacts and social impacts is the impact to our citizens, not just in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, as Kevin indicated to you, but in the whole triangle of Texas, which is growing so fast. And those are the type of things our consultants will have to keep up with when we study these particular options, especially if there's a Dallas to Houston connection and or a future Fort Worth to Laredo connection. Do you have another question?
Our final question is if the questions and answers provided during this meeting will be posted online.
Rebecca?
Yes, we will make the questions and answers available online, as well as we're putting together a frequently asked questions document that we will be posting online on the project website.
Any other questions for today? Amanda, phoning in? Computer questions?
Well, then we will wrap it up today. We thank you for your time, and definitely let us know if you have any questions or comments through the website. Thank you.